what we've got to do is bring our students' lives into the curriculum. Our students should never leave our classrooms wondering, what did I just learn, and why is that any good for me? We've got to really have them understanding how the math fits into their life, and then what they can do with it also.
And how do you... I'm your host, Danny Brassell, and this is the show where we celebrate the positive contributions of individuals throughout our community. And it's my joy and pleasure to have with me Alex Kajitani, who is the rapping mathematician and the 2009 California Teacher of the Year. Thanks so much for joining me, Alex.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited. Thanks, Danny.
So, the rapping mathematician. How did you become the rapping mathematician, Alex?
Well, I have to admit, actually, the whole rapping mathematician concept was born out of complete survival. Several years ago, I was a new teacher just struggling to survive in my classroom. I couldn't get my kids to pay attention. I couldn't get them to sit down. And, of course, I could not get them to memorize the math rule I had just taught them. But what I realized is a rap song would come out on Monday, and by Tuesday they seemed to have every single word memorized. And the problem with that, of course, is they were coming in rapping about drug use and violence and abusing women. And so one day I just had completely had enough. We were studying adding and subtracting decimals at the time. And so I wrote a rap song called The Itty Bitty Dot, and I went home and practiced it all night, and the next morning I busted it out. Just line up the dot and give it all you got. It was a complete disaster. The kids were just rolling on the ground laughing at me, and I even had one student who was laughing so hard he grabbed his stomach and fell out of his chair, hit his head on the carpet, and I had to send him to the nurse for an ice pack. And so I thought, okay, what a disaster. But a very interesting thing happened the next day. That afternoon, I was walking to the teacher's lounge for lunch, and I walked by the lunch tables, and all the kids were singing the Itty Bitty Dot. Even the ones who weren't in my class were singing along with the ones who were. And so the next day, something which had never happened to me happened before. The kids came in excited. They were just saying things like, "Oh, are you going to rap again, Mr. Kajatani? Yesterday was the best day ever in math class." One of the students even asked me if I was going to quit teaching and be on MTV full time. And so they haven't called yet, but what I started doing was every time I was teaching a new concept, I started putting in a rap about that concept, and the kids' test scores shot through the roof. It was a great chance for me to connect with the kids on their level, and I've been the rapping mathematician ever since.
So what grade level are we talking about?
At the time I was teaching 7th grade, and I was teaching a real diverse population of 7th graders. I had students in my class who were pretty much ready to go on to honors algebra, and then I had kids who were 2 to 3, maybe even 4 years below grade level. And so this was a chance to really connect with my low-performing students and give them a chance to get the basic skills that they needed in order to be successful later as they progress through math. And then it also gave the higher-level students, something to really think about, to memorize, and to think about how they might start using, their own raps in order to memorize key concepts later, even when they got to calculus.
So many people, Alex, think math is so difficult. How do you make math less intimidating for your students?
The first thing that we've really got to stop doing, I think, in this country really is what we're trying to do is we're trying to take our math curriculum and we're trying to shove it into our students' lives. And what we've got to do is we've got to flip that around. What we've got to do is take our students' lives and put it into our math curriculum. I mean, somehow in our society it's become okay to have been bad at math. you know, I sit in parent conferences all the time, and the parents will say things like, "Oh yeah, I wasn't very good at math either, and so you know, it's okay if my son or daughter isn't good at math either." You know, mathematicians have been portrayed in the media as being nerdy or being boring, and then when somebody is good at math, we call them a geek and we call them a nerd. And so we've got to first start by really combating that stereotype of mathematicians as being nerdy and boring. Then, like I mentioned, what we've got to do is bring our students' lives into the curriculum. Our students should never leave our classrooms wondering, what did I just learn, and why is that any good for me? We've got to really have them understanding how the math fits into their life, and then what they can do with it also.
And how do you show your students how math fits in their daily lives? Because I was reading some of the articles you wrote, and one of the things that you do, I saw, was you bring people from the community into your classroom that talk about how they use math in their daily lives. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the first thing that I tell teachers and parents a lot of times is don't teach alone. Get members from the community and bring them into your classroom in order to talk about the math. Now, everybody, whether they know it or not, is using math every minute of every single day. So if you need to bring in a lawyer, make sure the lawyer is talking about he or she uses math in the classroom. If you need to bring in an engineer, if you need to bring in the local grocery clerk, bring in whoever you can and get them talking about how they use math every single day. The other thing I do is I play a great game with my kids. It's called the Math Professor. And what I claim, I pretend to be the math professor, and sorry to all those professors out there who might be, who might think this is oversimplifying things. But what I do, I'm teaching 7th grade students, is I claim that there is nothing that does not have something to do with math. And if the students can think of something that I can't somehow explain mathematically, then they win a prize. And so at first, the students are so excited to play this game. And they, oh, Mr. Kajitani, I know something that has nothing to do with math. And one by one, they throw things at me, and I somehow relate it to math. Well, after a couple of days of playing this game, they go, oh, Mr. Kajitani, I know some... Oh, wait, no, never mind, I thought of it. And after a while, they don't want to play the game anymore. And they start saying things like, oh, okay, Mr. Kajatani, fine, everything has something to do with math, okay? We don't want to play this game anymore. And that's when I know I've got them. Because when they start to see the real-world significance of math in every single thing they do, that's when we know we're really connecting. And so one of the favorite songs of the Rapid Mathematician is actually called Math is Everywhere, where I go through a whole bunch of things that the students do in their everyday life and how that relates to math. Everything from, turning up the bass on the volume of their CD player or their iPod, to tying their shoes, to shopping at the store. Everything's got something to do with math, and that's what I love about life, and that's what I love about math.
I already see the passion. I love seeing the passion.
Excellent.
Teacher.
I'm just getting started.
Very good. Now, are you rapping every single day with the kids? And if you are, how long are you rapping during class?
Not every single day.
Okay.
And that's really a distinction that I make, is that the rap music is there to help supplement good teaching. It's not the basis for good teaching. And so basically, whenever I'm introducing a new concept, and I'll throw in the rap, so that's something that can keep coming up throughout a new unit or whenever we're introducing a new mathematical formula, things like that, because I don't want the rap music to replace the teaching. I want it to supplement the teaching.
Right.
So if we're studying fractions, maybe I'll throw down a little improper fraction rap about if it's bigger on the topper, it must be improper. But that's a tagline and a hook that the kids can use throughout the unit of studying proper and improper fractions. And so it's not every day, but it is as often as possible so that I can keep the math in their heads. And the biggest compliment I can get is when a student comes in one morning and says, Mr. Kajitani, I couldn't get your rap out of my head. It was running through my head all night last night. And sometimes the parents will come in and tell me that too. One girl actually told me that my Rapid Mathematician Volume 1 was the only CD that her entire family could agree upon while driving in the car.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
So everybody should buy that CD. It brings families together. It's a great way to make families.
Absolutely.
Now, how long does it take you usually to write a rap?
It varies. As the more I do, the quicker I get. But I usually, what I do is I take, sort of the main concepts, and I lay out exactly what it is that the students what I want them to remember and what I want them to know, and then I take in the things that they're interested in, and I pepper in clever phrases about living a positive life. That's something that's very important to me as well. I may be teaching math all day, but I'm also teaching students all day, and so I want them to be trustworthy, ethical human beings, and so I put in the lyrics about that, because really that's what rap music is doing. In 2006, the top 3 mentioned brands in mainstream rap music were Gucci handbags, I think it was the Cadillac Escalade, as well as Stoli Cristal vodka. And so rap music is already doing a good job of making pretty much anything cool. And so what I try to do is make the things that are at school that our students deal with cool as well, by rapping about them. And what I found is that's what being cool really is. It's just being comfortable with who you are and with what you do.
That's a nice definition. Have you found that your students have started writing their own math raps?
Absolutely. In fact, it becomes an end-of-year requirement.
Good. I like that.
So yeah, they go onto there's a great website for rhyming words if they need to. It's called rhymezone.com.
Okay, good.
rhymezone.com. And what you can do is you can put in any word in the English language, and it'll come back to you with words and phrases that rhyme with it.
How about orange?
Yeah, you know what? We should put that one in after the show. Well, here's the beautiful thing. If something doesn't rhyme, what it then does is comes back with close rhymes.
Okay, good.
So you may have something like, what's a close rhyme with orange? Storage, maybe.
Storage.
So yeah, you could put an orange in storage. And if you say it fast enough with enough confidence, suddenly it rhymes like the rappers do.
It's a good politician. Say quickly enough with enough confidence.
Exactly.
It gets past everybody.
And so that's, and what they do is they end up leaving with a rap song that they've created. And when you create your own rap song, you're never going to forget that mathematical concept for the rest of your life. I mean, any of your viewers could turn on a song that they haven't heard for 20 years and immediately start singing along, because just music stimulates that part of the brain that's so wonderful and is so easy to remember.
Your students are like, I already feel your passion. I mean, I want to be in your class right now, Alex.
Come on in.
Great. What made you want to become a teacher? Tell us a little bit about growing up. Did you grow up here in Southern California?
Yep,
I saw that you went to Irvine High School.
That's right. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California, and I wish that I had some crazy, huge epiphany about why I wanted to be a teacher. But I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher ever since I was young. And so what that did was it placed me at a great advantage, because what I did was I somehow started mentally cataloging lessons that my own teachers did in their classroom. And so I've used things that my teachers used from when I was in 3rd grade that I still remember very vividly. I started looking at ways that they manage the classroom. I still use techniques for managing classrooms and things that they say to me and that they said to me, when I was going through tough times. And so I've been able to pull that out. I also have done a lot of traveling internationally, and so as I traveled, I saw just amazing things and absolutely horrible things happening in war-torn countries and third world countries. But as I traveled, I was very comforted by the fact that everything that I saw out in the world, I would someday be bringing back into my own classroom to share with my students. And so it just let me progress through my life, knowing, maybe not right away, but that someday I'd be a teacher and I'd be sharing everything with my students.
What specifically drew you to math? Because I saw you went on to go to University of Colorado at Boulder, get your undergraduate degree in sociology. Did you get your master's there also?
I didn't. Yeah, I got an undergraduate degree in sociology, and my first job out of college was managing a restaurant. And I will tell you that actually my first job was a social worker, and the pay was so bad that I started having to bus tables at night. And so here I am, a 22...
So teaching was an upgrade.
Exactly. Here I am, a 22-year-old kid. I'm working all day as a social worker, and now I'm seeing these waiters making 2-3 times as much in a couple of hours. And so I thought, okay, I see where this is going. And so I phased the social work out, and I started, busing and then waiting, and then I became the manager of the restaurant. And I will tell you that I used my sociology degree managing a restaurant more than I ever did as a social worker. But at the same time, I knew that wasn't the work that I was called upon this earth to do, and it was being a teacher. So eventually I went and got my master's degree in education from San Diego State University.
Great.
And became a teacher. And now I'll tell you, managing a classroom, I use my restaurant management skills more than anything I ever learned in the teacher credential program. Not that teacher credential programs aren't doing a great job, but being able to pull from those life skills and experiences has really made me, I think, a much better teacher.
Well, and that's got to be a great lesson that you're exposing your students to all the time, is that take every experience in your life and figure out how to apply it to whatever you're doing now.
Absolutely. And the great thing is, I get to say things like, you need to be here on time, ready to go, because when you're older, your employer isn't really going to care what your problems are, and all they're going to notice is that you're consistently late. And so I can draw on stories and experiences in order to really make those connections. Again, that's what it comes back to. Whether we're teaching math or whether we're teaching, hey, you better get here on time, it's making those connections so that our students really see the value of it in their lives.
So you graduate San Diego State with your master's degree in curriculum. Tell us about getting your first job. Was it in Escondido? Was your first job?
No, it wasn't in Escondido. It was down in a city called Spring Valley, which is in southeast San Diego. And I was just overjoyed. I got my classroom all set up. I was going to be teaching, 5 sections of 7th and 8th grade math. I was overjoyed. I was going to change the world. I was ready to go. I had everything in place. And I got in front of the students and realized, wow, there's a lot more to this than I ever imagined. I had students who were performing at 3-4 years below grade level. I had students who had, 7th and 8th grade students who had difficulty reading. I had students who came from, just really tough home life challenges. And I also had students who were, absolutely wonderful and were already looking at what college they were going to go to. And what I realized is, regardless of, the one thing that we don't have control over as teachers is who comes into our classroom. We've got to take them all in. And it doesn't matter where they're supposed to be. It doesn't matter what they're supposed to have learned. When they get to our classroom, they are where they are. And it's our responsibility as teachers to take them from where they are to where they need to be. And that's just, you're working with a diverse set of students with ethnicities and with academic levels and income coming from different income levels as well. But we've got to take them in, and we've got to just teach them to the absolute best of our ability and their ability.
What drew you to math specifically?
I love the way that math makes my brain feel when I'm doing it. When I'm able to solve a problem, when I'm able to stay organized, when I'm able to just look at a problem and really pick an approach and sort of be able to pull out the important information and then pick a strategy on how to solve it and then make sure if my answer is actually reasonable and makes sense. That's a process that I really love, because it really is just solving a word problem in math is really just a microcosm of solving a problem in life. And we can learn so much from even just doing just pure mathematics where we're putting numbers on a paper. It's, I've got something that I call the Kajitani style, which is a requirement for my students on how they do their math, which really is the same thing a lot of teachers do. It's a certain style with requirements. They've got to number each of their problems. They've got to keep their numbers straight. They've got to circle the final answer. The only difference is I call it Kajatani style. Yeah. And so they've got to, do all of these things while they're doing their homework or filling out their notes in order to keep it neat and keep it organized. And so if a student isn't doing that, I don't have to say, hey, come on, how come you didn't keep your work neat? I can just say, is that Kajatani style? And they just say no, and they've got to redo it. And of course, what happens throughout the course of a semester is Kajatani style becomes something much more than how you format your paper. It becomes how you think about yourself. And so I'll walk in with a new haircut one day and the students will say, hey, nice haircut, that's Kajatani style. Or one day at lunch I spilled mustard on my tie and I thought, oh, what am I going to do?
Kajatani style.
That's right, I walked in and said, check it out everybody, it's the mustard on the tie look, that's Kajatani style. But over the course of the semester, my students develop their own style. And so they start to, really incorporate their own style, and everything that really a 7th or an 8th grader or even younger or older, everything a student thinks of themselves as awkward or weird suddenly becomes their style, and they become very comfortable with who they are. And again, that's what being cool really is just being comfortable with who you are. When I started rapping, I thought I had to be like Snoop Dogg or Eminem, and really I had to get comfortable being that weird, wacky math teacher who was willing to get up and rap.
Which is, I love that, Alex, because I always tell people, I'm like, I've never seen the inspirational teaching movie of the teacher that went into the inner city and inspired his students by using the district's mandatory program. It's always somebody that's rapping or doing something like that. Tell us a little bit about the process of becoming named the California Teacher of the Year, because that is a huge honor.
It was such an honor, and I got to tell you, I did not do it alone. Again, growing up, I had teachers who were just fantastic. Not all of them, but enough of them to really push my thinking academically, as well as developmentally. I had parents who were very supportive of my education. I had friends who were often talking about going to college, and that we were dreaming together and things like that. When I got to college, I had professors who were very encouraging of me, and then when I started teaching, I had colleagues who were always willing to say, hey, Alex, come on, let me help you with that, or what do you need? And of course I had students who I was able to look at and just completely be inspired by. And so what happens is, when all of those things come together, what can result is a Teacher of the Year. And unfortunately, we've got so many of our teachers out there who may be missing one or more of those components of feeling supported, and so we're losing lots of teachers. Half of all teachers drop out of the profession within 5 years of starting teaching, and so what we've really got to do is create a profession that is so supportive, not when you start your teaching profession, but from well before you start, when you start training to become a teacher. And so by the time I became the California Teacher of the Year, that was really just a manifestation of years of hard work and good fortune and the opportunity to be around amazing people. And that's what I'd like to see for lots and lots of teachers.
Well, and I love that you're talking about support, because you've made the transition now, because you're not still in the classroom, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Now you're supporting other teachers and showing them some of your secrets. What exactly, take us through your different trainings, workshops, and I think you coach also, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Currently, I'm coaching a lot of teachers, everything from small groups to one-on-one throughout my district. And then the other thing that I'm doing is I'm going around, getting the opportunity to travel around the country, put on different workshops, and give keynote speeches at conferences and to organizations, things like that. I don't just talk about math in my workshops. I've got a lot of different workshops that I conduct. One of them is called Making Math Cool with a Rappin' Mathematician, where I really go through how we can combat these negative stereotypes of mathematicians as nerdy and boring, and then also give teachers hands-on tools and strategies and activities that they can really bring that back to good teaching and really highly effective teaching. I also am a leading authority on closing the achievement gap and giving teachers real, easy to implement tools that they can use the very next day in order to help their underperforming students and help bring them up to speed and get them to the academic level they need to be at.
I like that you just hit upon the achievement gap, because there's a term you use which I love, is you don't use the term at-risk students, you use at-promise students. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was from an organization that I started presenting for. It's called RAPSA, the Reaching At Promise Students Association, and I was able to present at one of their conferences a few years ago, and that turned into actually an opportunity to write a bi-monthly column for teachers of at-risk students. The only difference is we call them at-promise students.
Which is great.
It's fantastic, and really, that's what every single student is. Every one of our students walks into our classroom every day with hopes and with dreams, and we've got to ignite that in them and really get that going, regardless of all of the extra challenges that they deal with. At the same time, we do need to acknowledge the fact that the students can come in several grades, several years below grade level, and we've got to have real, actual strategies that we use in order to get them caught up, and that's what excites me.
It seems like right now the bottom line in education is the test scores, and your kids improved on their test scores. I guess this is a double question. How do you think Why is it they improved, you think? And how important do you think the test scores are for the kids?
Well, I think that the test scores are an excellent opportunity for us to be able to have sort of a standardized procedure where we see, okay, here's where you came in. According to this test, here's where you came into my class, and here's where you left. I actually also really like the opportunity to say, okay, kids in my class, here's how the kids in my class did, and here's how they compare to kids, in maybe a more affluent neighborhood in California, or soon with the Common Core standards, maybe, other neighborhoods or other states, all across the country. So I like that sort of standardized procedure, not procedure, but that standardized opportunity to have a comparison tool. Unfortunately, what's happened though is that the tests have begun to drive all of the teachers' instruction. So instead of the teachers saying, what is it that my students need and how can I get it to them, they're saying, okay, what do they need in order to do well on this test, and how can I get them enough of that so they pass the test? And so that, unfortunately, I think what we do is we supplement a lot of the creativity and the curriculum that we know that we should be teaching in order to sort of supplement these tests. The other tragic thing is just that in order to do that, what we've done is we've really slashed away at arts and music funding and things like that, which I believe are so very important to not only our students' brains and their academic development, but to the flourishing of our society.
And really even math manipulatives have been cut too. You don't have those great things. We only have a couple more moments now. Alex, what are your parting words of wisdom for teachers and even for parents that want to inspire their kids to love math and really to love learning? Well,
the first thing is that if they've been inspired by me, please feel free to go onto my website. It's mathraps.com. It's www.mathraps.com. They can check out the CDs. They can get them for themselves. And that was another reason why I made the CDs. Is I knew not every teacher wanted to get up in front of their class and rap, and same with every parent. So I created the CDs so that everybody could have the tools and I could share them with them. And those CDs and workbooks are now being used in homes and classrooms all over the world. So that's been really fantastic. And the other thing really is that I can leave as parting words are really how I started, which is always be looking for opportunities to take our students' lives and put it into the curriculum that needs to be taught. We've got to take what our students know and the experience that they already have and create opportunities and subject matter that they never even dreamed of, but they can't exist as two separate things. They've got to exist together.
I'm so excited that there's people like you still in our classrooms and that you're actually now imparting your wisdom to other teachers.
Thanks, it's a pleasure.
I am so appreciative that you came on the show and found the time for us, Alex. There are people like Alex everywhere, folks. If you know of anybody that you'd like to see as a future guest on People Make a Difference, you can just email me at danny@dannybrassell.com. My last name's really easy to spell. It's spelled like brassell.com. Folks, there are people like Alex around all the time making a difference. You can make a difference too. Until next time, thank you for joining us and have a blessed day.